In a world where kingdoms fall and stars still remember names, this song was forged from magic memory and the dream that refused to die. Welcome to a tale where wonder still breathes. This is the story entitled The Cloud That Sang With Her for Win, written by Pacampara. If this tale stirred something in you, a memory, a dream, or a truth, our Ko-fi, Amazon, and Patreon links are in the description. Support helps us keep writing for you and the ones you hold dear. They say the heavens wept in joy the day the three sisters became his bride, not because they were claimed, but because they had chosen him. Just the man who wore galaxies like rings of old promises and kept kindness hidden in the marrow of his bones. He did not ask for devotion. He offered his own, and the universe for once bowed not to a king but to a beloved. Before the gathered stars, in a garden stitched with starlight and soft wind, Yongsun, Byul, and Duin stood barefoot beneath a crownless sky. No thrones, no veils, just laughter and heartbeats, and hands clasped as if they were writing the first line of a story that had waited eons to be told. To Yongsun he gave the sun, not the burning one in the sky, but the one that warmed lonely mornings, that rose even when she didn't ask it to, that knew how to endure in silence and blaze when needed. You are my dawn, he whispered, the reason I rise. To Byul he gave the stars, not the distant ones, but the wild ones that shot across skies like fire-born prayers. You are my midnight spark, he said, my compass when the world forgets its light. Her grin swallowed galaxies, and even the stars dared to shimmer louder in her presence. And to Win he gave the wind, not the howling kind, but the one that sings through open windows, that dances in gardens, that carries lullaby and scents of memory. You are my breath, he told her, my melody between the silences. They did not wear white, they wore the cosmos. Yongsun in gold silk that shimmered like late afternoon, Byul in ink blue with silver constellations stitched at the hem, and Duin in soft ivory that moved like a song remembered from a dream. Jess wore no crown, only a thread of soft stardust across his shoulders, and in his hand a ribbon of promise woven from the past and the not yet. And when they kissed, one after the other, and then all together, the wind paused to listen. The stars leaned closer and the sun lingered just a little longer on the edge of the horizon. And so began the quiet, wondrous tale of the cloud that learned to sing for her. Beneath a sky trembling with silver constellations, Jess, the king who bore the weight of galaxies upon his shoulder, stood upon a balcony that seemed carved from the silence between stars. His crown was not of metal but of memory. Every vow he had spoken, every battle he had endured, every song he had once hummed to keep despair away. He looked upward, not as a ruler commanding the vastness, but as a man aching for something tender and luminous, something that even the empire of suns could not grant him. Sky, he whispered, his voice woven with reverence, give me a gift for her. Her was Win, the princess of the heavens, the one whose laughter could make dust feel like dawn, whose voice was neither loud nor fragile, but threaded with the mystery of rivers that have known both stillness and storm. To love her was to stand in the center of 1,000 lanterns and realize that even their flames could not imitate the warmth of her presence. Jess, who had spoken to gods and defied demons, now sought something humbler, gentler, a gift that would breathe into her life the quiet devotion his words could never fully hold. And so the sky listened. Clouds drifted like forgotten hymns, soft-edged and half-formed, until one paused above him. It was no longer, or not larger than a handspan, trembling faintly as though it carried within itself a secret melody. Jess saw at once that this was no ordinary cloud. Its pale body quivered as if trying to recall a lullaby once sung in the hush of creation. The cloud followed him home each night. It floated outside Wien's window, where she lay with her hair undone, the moon spilling light over her cheeks. At first, she thought it was the breeze teasing her curtains, but then came the sound, softer than breath, delicate as starlight, caught in a glass jar, a song and a lullaby. The clouds sang not with words but with tones that seemed to belong to the hush between heartbeats, a language meant only for her. She stared and laughed, her voice like bells dipped in honey. Just she whispered through the window, "Did you tell the sky to sing for me?" He smiled, though he did not answer, for in truth, he had not told it what song to sing. The cloud had chosen its own melody, drawn perhaps from the way Wien smiled when she thought no one watched, or from the way her silences carried the weight of unshed tears. It sang of her and for her in her presence. And yet, as Jess listened night after night, he could not escape a memory. Long before the cloud, long before the crown, he had heard Wien's voice in dream. He had been a boy, half drifting on sleep, when sound entered him like sunlight through a shuttered room. A girl's voice, bright and fragile, as though a bird were singing inside its chest. He woke trembling, convinced it was nothing more than imagination. But years later, when Wien first laughed near him, he knew it was the same timbre, the same thread of music that had once crossed the bridge of sleep to find him. Voices meeting across time, already destined to entwine. To secure the cloud, Jess had bargained with the stars themselves. He wandered through celestial landscapes where the constellations bent down like elders, their eyes burning with patient fire. They asked him what he would give up for her gift. Anything, he said, though his voice quaked, and so he promised them the silence from his own lips. When sorrow came, that he would not burden her with the weight of his despair. He promised them part of his endless flame, so that when his empire called for wrath, he would temper it with tenderness. The stars took these vows, wove them into the cloud, and they released everything to him, not as possession but as trust. The gift did not belong to him alone. At dawn, when Yongsun stretched on the porch with her hair still wet from washing, the cloud sent down a gentle hum that braided itself into the rhythm of her breath. At twilight, when Biol leaned against the garden wall, watching the fireflies weave their own small galaxy, the cloud's tune deepened, turning mischievous, playful, like a friend tapping at the strings of a hidden guitar. And one evening, when Biol thought no one listened, she spoke softly to Git. "If you ever hear me falter, sing louder." I want her to know I was never afraid to stay, the cloud shimmered in answer, a listener holding secrets without judgment. Yongsun too found herself confessing beneath its glow, whispering doubts she never voiced to anyone else. Sometimes I think I'm too stern, too heavy for her. But if she hears you, she knows she is loved in every octave, every silence. The cloud's melody wrapped around her like silk, neither agreeing nor denying, only reminding her that love needed no justification. Wien herself dreamed of the cloud. In slumber, she walked upon its body as though it were a bridge across the sky. Each step echoed like a note, and she realized she was treading upon forgotten songs, the ballad of stars long extinguished, lullabies of children yet unborn. The cloud guided her, teaching her melodies that were not written in any book, but lived only in the hum of galaxies. And when she woke, she carried the fragments of those songs in her throat, and when she sang, the air itself seemed to tremble with recognition. But one night, the song did not come. Wien waited by the window, her chest hollow, her fingers trembling. The air was empty, too still, as though the sky itself had forgotten Jess and her. It felt like pain, like an arrow piercing his ribs. He wanted to command, to rage at the heavens, but he remembered his vow, to bear silence when sorrow came. So he held her, and they said nothing, only breathing together in the dark. And then, after what was felt like an eternity, a A single note returned, fragile and hesitant yet luminous, like a candle relit in the deepest cavern. The clouds sang again, not the lullaby it once had, but a new melody, heavier with longing, brighter with devotion. It was a song of absence and return, of waiting and faith. Wind pressed her forehead against Jess, whispering through tears. It left but it came back, just like you always do. The Cosmos King smiled not as a conqueror, but as a man who knew he would cross every galaxy again if it meant finding the one note that made her heart tremble. The cloud sang on, its voice threading through their nights like a promise no war could sever. The nights grew longer, not in darkness but in meaning. Under the hush of velvet skies, the small cloud song began to shift. Its one solitary lullaby now felt like a question answered in echo, a melody incomplete, seeking other voices to bring it into fullness. One evening after the stars had settled and the air smelled of lavender and warmth, Ween wandered into the garden barefoot. The moonlight kissed her shoulders, her silhouette tender in its vulnerability. The cloud hovered low, pulsing gently as if aware something is about to begin. It began without thought, a memory caught on her tongue, one of those cloud-waking dreams where she had learned songs from starlight and echoes. Just hidden behind the edge of the veranda watched her. Each note she let go into the air became a thread, and the cloud caught it, harmonized and wove it back into her breath. It was not a performance, it was a communion. Youngsun appeared next quietly, carrying a cup of warm barley tea she did not drink. She stood there simply listening. Ween's voice softened when she noticed her. Then in that hush, Youngsun added her voice, a low steady hum at first anchoring, as if to remind them that love does not always need a crescendo. It can be steady as a tide and wind. The cloud shifted shape as if breathing with them deep and slow. Buell arrived last, hands tucked into her sleeves, laughter caught behind her teeth. I'm not gonna sing, she murmured, but when Ween glanced over her shoulder, eyes shining, Buell caved with a grin and shake of her head. Fine, just the bridge. But she didn't stop there. Her voice came in sharp and vibrant, playful and poignant, as if she were daring the stars to forget her. Just swore it sounded like moonlight in motion. When the three voices circled, the cloud now, Ween's delicate thread, Youngsun's riverstone hum, and Buell's streak of lightning, all blending into something impossible to name, the cloud responded. It no longer sang above them, it sang with them. It was as though it had only ever been waiting to be joined. The hormones swelled gently, never overwhelming, never forced. They rose like mist over water, like the rustling of silk hanbok sleeves, like whispered promises held between breaths. The garden became a shrine not of gods, but of memory, of shared history, of the present moment stretched into forever. Just stepped forward then, slow reverent. He did not sing, not yet. Instead, he opened his hands and knelt in the grass. This he whispered to the stars, to the earth, to the cloud that had once been alone, is thou made whole. Ween looked at him, and for a moment all the cosmos might have bowed. She reached out for her hand and pulled him into the circle. Sing, she said, if not to the heavens, then to us. He did. His voice was rougher, older. It carried battles and weariness, scars both seen and hidden, but it also carried every time he had whispered her name beneath breath, every laugh he had buried in silence just to remember its echo. He sang as a man that would sing if given one moment to hold all eternity in his mouth. The cloud pulsed, luminous. It grew larger but brighter, deeper like a heart that had learned not only to breathe and to beat, but to hope. From that night on, the cloud did not merely move outside Ween's window, it moved with them. It followed Jess when he rode through the eastern gates of his empire, softly humming the tune they made together. It rested beside Buell during her sleepless nights, and circled Youngsun's lantern-lit journals like a guardian spirit. It kept close when we in dance alone, spinning barefoot beneath a blooming jacarandas, her voice chasing dreams made of song. And sometimes when they sang together again, the melody shifted once more. The cloud no longer led the song, they all did. A shared symphony of sacrifice, of childhood memory, of private prayers whispered to a sky that had at last answered. Because in the end, the cloud had learned not only to sing for her, it had learned to sing with her. And that made all the difference. Years passed, like petals carried downstream, softly, invisibly, yet never lost, and the garden remained. Its jacaranda trees had grown taller, casting longer shadows that whispered across stone paths where Jess once knelt. The stars still watched, familiar and fond, and the wind that had once trembled with the first songs now moved with confidence, as if it had learned to sing in more than one voice. And one evening, just as twilight spilled into indigo, the cloud returned. It had gone for how long, none could say. Perhaps to learn, perhaps to sleep, perhaps to carry their music into forgotten corners of the sky. But when it came home, it hovered without fanfare, glowing dimly like a lantern left alight for a traveler who never forgot the way. Bean was the first to see it. She was sitting alone beneath the wind chimes Jess had crafted long ago, notes caught in threads of crystal and driftwood. Hair longer now, trembled in the breeze. She looked up, eyes wide with the astonishment of reunion, and whispered the only word she needed, "You, my cloud." A single tone answered her, gentle, familiar, the beginning of a lullaby long paused but never abandoned. Youngsun emerged from the veranda, her tea forgotten in her hand, lips parted in a soft gasp. "It's really you," she murmured, and the cloud shifted, glowing warm, like morning sunlight caught in silk. Bill whistled, arms crossed. "Took you long enough," she teased, but her eyes shimmered. "Thought you were singing off-key to the stars without us." And just taller, quieter, slower in his steps, came to stand behind them. His hand rested gently on Ween's shoulder. Maybe it missed the harmony. No one said, "Sing." They simply did. Ween hummed first, her voice still bright but now filled with lived-in softness. Youngsun followed, deeper and steadier, grounding them. Buell rolled her eyes and joined next, playful and sharp, flipping a note like a coin through her teeth. And Jess, he let out a sigh that turned into song, rough and low like a river remembering its source. The clouds pulsed once, then answered. Their four voices wove together again, not perfectly, not with grandeur but with truth. There were new lines in their faces now, old battles healed, joys endured, a garden that had bloomed and withered and bloomed again. The song knew all of it, and it didn't matter if it wasn't the same as before, because no melody, once made with love, is ever truly lost. It only waits. And that night, their harmony didn't rise to the stars. It settled into the roots of the trees, in the corners of the house, the breeze that tugged at curtains into the memory of the garden itself, and the clouds small, faithful and glowing, hovered there still, waiting for them to sing again, not for the heavens but for each other. Each day, I write and create for my beloved Youngsun, the sun who lights up my every verse, every tale, every quiet thought I dare to share. If her warmth reached you through these words, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep stories that shine.